Hello, Cloud Gurus, and welcome back. In this lecture, we're going to go over some Node.js concepts and the blueprints that we're going to use to create our function. First, we're going to head over to the AWS console, and we're going to use the toolbar link that we created to head over to the Lambda console. It's important when you're doing this course to remember what region you are in. So make sure when you look up on that right-hand side that you always see the same place. I use the North Virginia region. Nothing in this course is region dependent as long as you're consistent, so always use the same region. And we're going to create a Lambda function. There are a few basic ways to start a function. You can start from scratch, which no presets, nothing, no pre-filled out code. You can choose blueprints, which are handy little pre-built examples. You can see some of these blueprint options are handy if you're building, say, an Alexa application. You can filter by tags and look for keywords like Alexa, and it will give you all of these example Alexa skills. One thing about these blueprints is some of them are in older versions of languages. You can see these are in Node.js 6.10, for example, or Python 2.7 instead of using the latest available language runtimes. And the last option is the serverless application repository, which lets anyone publish applications to AWS Serverless Marketplace, and you can pull down entire applications or services. For example, you can see this is a CloudFormation template converter that will convert between JSON and YAML formats, and you can click on this and install it right in your AWS account without having to write any code yourself. What we're going to do, though, is we're going to author from scratch and make sure to select the latest available runtime, which is right now Node.js 8.1. But first, we're going to learn a little bit more about writing code for Lambda and some new vocabulary. What we just did was start to create a blueprint, and we need to talk about the heart and soul of your Lambda function, and that's what happens when it's invoked. That's called the handler, and a handler consists of a path to a function to be run, and in your code, it's a single Node.js function. And that path looks something like the name of the file dot the name of the function. By default, index.js is the file that it uses, and it's going to accept three arguments: the event, the context, and the callback. Here's an example of a previous Lambda function that you might have written using Node.js 0.1 or Node.js 4. You can see that you declare the handler function, and you give those three arguments: the event, the context, and the callback. And then to end your Lambda function, you use the callback function to return hello. The first argument to callback was always error, and the second argument is data. And if you didn't want to raise an error, you have to always put null as that first callback argument. In Node.js 6 and 8, which are the latest versions that are available, you can use a new style function declaration. These are called arrow functions, which use an equal and a greater than sign, and then you declare the body of your function. This is a little bit more of a complex function because I wanted to show the use of promises, which are an advanced Node.js feature that let you build chains of events. So you create a promise, and then you can wait for things to finish using .then. And eventually, when the promise resolves, that's what actually is returned. If you're a Node.js expert already, this is all review. If you're new to Node.js or not an expert yet, then promises are going to be making more appearances, and we'll hear more about them as we go on in the course. Async and await are new language features in Node 8 that make dealing with promises much easier, and it makes your code much, much more readable. Instead of dealing with promise chains like we saw in the last slide, in this slide you can see that I've added a couple of keywords. In this slide, you'll see the same require of the AWS SDK, instantiation of the AWS SDK, but a new keyword has appeared before the arrow function that we declared, and then we added a keyword next to return. So we return await, and then the promise that we want to execute. What this is doing under the hood is it's waiting for the promise, but it makes it a lot easier for us to use promises in our Lambda function and make our code look much simpler and be much easier to read. Another reason to use Node 8 in your functions instead of Node 6 is that it can be up to 20% faster than Node 6. If you're a Python developer, you can see a 10 to 40% speed increase moving from Python 2.7 to Python 3 as well. That's all for this lecture. Next time, we're going to go back to the AWS console and continue creating our function